This video is sponsored by Full Moon Features. If you or someone you know loves horror collectibles, be sure to check out Full Moon's Tiny Terrors, the perfect gift this holiday season. For more information, click the link below, or stick around till the end of this video.
Ho, ho, ho.
Good evening, campers, dreamers, and babysitters. And yes, we are back. It has been a few days since we've posted to the channel. I mean, we kind of had an onslaught of just busyness, but we have been busy bees behind the scenes as usual. We are working on all of our December to Dismember content, which will be hitting to you this week. As well as, if you can tell, I got myself a new camera. So I am upgraded just like Luke. I haven't figured out the color and everything, so I look a little funky. But bear with me. By the time we get the next video out, I should be all good. But that is not what we are here to discuss. No, today we had this wonderful surprise as Deadline posted an article just interviewing LaVera and Damien Leone talking about Terrifier 3. And normally these interviews, they can be, a little bit of a mixed bag. You never know what you're going to get from them. A lot of them can be kind of puff PC in the sense of just like, yeah, movie's coming, it's going to be cool. This one had some meat on the bone, and it was very exciting to read through that. And just being rabid Terrifier fans and rabid horror fans, just picking out all of the little morsels that they dropped very subtly throughout. And Luke, I see you've got your little Art the Clown mask with his Santa hat donned back there, very festive. How you feeling about the news today?
Oh man, I think being Terrifier fans, your ears perk up anytime you see that headline with Terrifier 3 news. After seeing the little teaser in the theater after Terrifier 2, it's one of those things where just keep feeding me. It's like anytime there's news, and this stuff seems pretty exciting. They kind of covered a lot of things, just little tidbits, little morsels there, but kind of giving us some insight before they really get into the nitty gritty and kind of get into filming. But we're already excited, but anytime news drops, no matter how small it is, we get even more excited.
Yeah, and I think that we'll just kind of kick things off and get into just what exactly they discussed. And the first thing, obviously, one of the big highlights is the cast members that are returning. But what I actually want to start with is a couple of bullet points I wrote here, just some general knowledge stuff. Again, these little nuggets we were able to pull. That is, production is starting in February. I believe that was already reported at one point, but they did reiterate that, yes, we're about 2 months away from them shooting. It is picking up directly after Terrifier 2, so following in step with Terrifier 2, how that one picked right up off the first one. And, I assume there's going to be, just like that, a little bit of a time jump. And then the budget itself is, they said a couple $1 million. So I just put about $2 million is about what the budget was, where the last film was, I believe, $250,000,
Yep.
and the one prior to that was what they said, 31,000,
Yep.
something like that. So big step up, and that this is going to be unrated, of course. Again, Screambox, Bloody Disgusting, the good folks over there putting this thing out, Cineverse. They're giving the horror fans what they want: good, gory fun. And the last thing I have here is just minor bullet point is Damien Leone and his producer Phil Falcone are not going to be the ones taking charge on the special effects this time around. Now, don't get me wrong, they're going to have all their hands in it. I'm sure there's going to be stuff that they're going to do, but it is nice, and Damien Leone expresses how nice it is to have a full team that he's able to pay and rely on, so he's not pulling double duty.
Yeah, and we're gonna have Damien Leone kind of overseeing everything, obviously. So having yourself spread so thin, and I know we've only made a short film, and how crazy that gets in terms of just being able having your hands everywhere at once. This will be nice just to kind of have him be able to focus on directing everything and having a full team dedicated to those special effects, because looking at Terrifier, we go in for that gore, and they've always always hit that mark with it. So looking at this, having a full team dedicated to that, and having Damien Leone being able to okay all the things there, it's not going to disappoint. It's one of those things where I can't wait to see what they're going to do. The last two films have been such a showcase, and with that being on even smaller budgets, so I can't really wait to see what they're going to bring here. He talks about in that article where his style is kind of, writing big, and then as they get closer to filming, he kind of re-edits everything of maybe, it's not as tangible as he thought. So I'm curious to see what they're going to bring here, because, after that, some of those pieces in Terrifier 2, they're going to bring the heat with Terrifier 3. So I'm really excited, and knowing that they have that team dedicated to it. I mean, I think we're only looking at positives here.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. You do bring up the having to pull double duty or wear multiple hats on smaller productions. It's just a part of the business. It's part of the territory. So on a lot of our projects, I end up crafting a lot of our special effects as well as doing the directing and camera. So it's one of those things where it's kind of like, I sympathize with that, even though none of our effects have gone nearly as elaborate as what Damien has given us here. But one of the other things I wanted to bring up out of this article was, of course, like I said, the big announcement. We all kind of assumed it was safe to assume, but it is official that Lauren LaVera is back as Sienna. I mean, how could you not have her? There was a piece of me after seeing this teaser trailer and realizing that she wasn't on board, or at least announced to be on board yet, that I was like, no way they would go in a different direction, or like we'd be taking like a full-blown departure away from Sienna. Like that just didn't sit well with me. But I'm happy to report that not only is she back, but Elliot Fulma is back as well as Jonathan, her brother. And then, of course, Victoria is also coming back. Samantha Shafati, I think is how you say that. I apologize if I'm butchering your last name there. And then, of course, Luke. You got a big smile and a big chuckle out of this one. But Chris Jericho is also returning. I wouldn't expect his role to be very big, but I expect him to be in that cold open. They didn't indicate that at all, but I would expect him to be a part of that opening.
Yeah, and I expect that we're going to spend maybe a little bit of time in the mental institution. I would honestly love for this to open up and kind of maybe just spend a little extra time there, really opening it up, maybe like a 15-20 minute ordeal where you can really just as those gore effects have as we've seen in Terrifier 2, they take on a life of their own in terms of, some of those gory scenes. I would love for Terrifier 2 or Terrifier 3 to really open up, maybe a little Halloween 2 vibe, where we spend a little bit of time there with Art just doing a lot of wild stuff. And, the only thing that I had posted about it after we got that Terrifier 3 teaser, where I just want some sort of almost They Live style fight between Art the Clown and Chris Jericho. If we got something like that and then he met his demise, I think that would be just a glorious cold open for me. So I hope we spend a little bit of time in that mental institution. I do follow Chris Jericho on Instagram. He did post something earlier today with his hair tied back and him doing a little bit of model where they're kind of catching some expressions of his face, and he posted, guess what film this is for? Everyone's saying Terrifier 3. He's got his mouth gaping open, so I can only imagine what special effect we're pulling out for Chris Jericho.
I'm sure he's going to get absolutely eviscerated, and I'm excited to see it. Yes, I would love the They Live reference, or at least a homage to that with Art and him going back and forth. That would be quite a lot of fun. Just knowing from my brief knowledge of wrestling and these wrestlers that you've opened my world up to over these last few years, I know how much of a horror fan Chris Jericho is, and it's exciting to see him not only get to participate again, but I hope really get some more screen time. I agree with you. I'd love if this film did almost like a Friday the 13th remake style, where we get ourselves like a nice 20-30 minute opening. I mean, maybe not 30, but 20 minutes would be amazing. Just really go all out for it. Art the Clown in the mental institution, like that would be insane. I would love it. Jumping from that, though, we did actually get confirmation that if not the rest of this film, the majority of it is taking place the night of Christmas Eve. And that's amazing. That's everything we were hoping for. I mean, from this getting announced and the teaser poster leaking that this was going to be a Christmas film, I mean, that perked us up. I know Luke got real excited being our holiday horror aficionado on the channel. Just the fact that this will, in no doubt, shape, or form, take place on Christmas Eve leading into Christmas. I mean, that's perfect. I think one of our coverages or one of our stories we talked about a few weeks back, I think I had said I would expect it to be, if not Christmas Day, a couple days leading into it, and then the finale taking place on Christmas. But the fact that it's all that night, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. I'm curious to see, what the timeline's going to be. I could easily see our Miles County clown dispatching everyone in the mental institution and then not being heard from until Christmas Eve, either that year or the next year, and then showing up to, wreak some havoc on Miles County. So I'm absolutely excited. The teaser trailer did a wonderful job of getting us real hyped up for that holiday horror feel. And just the artwork that we've gotten, as we see in our background there, I think is wonderfully done as well. I hope they lean into a lot of some of the comedy references that Art does. I think that will be a lot of fun. Him dressed up as Santa Claus, I hope that is at least we see some of that in the film. I think would be really great to see. It really opens up for just a lot of great scenery, and we've had a run of some holiday horror here on the channel that hasn't really hit, but I have all the faith of Terrifier 3 really giving us those holiday feels.
Yeah, I mean, not everything can be Thanksgiving, but it's one of those things where if we had to sacrifice what we've been seeing recently for that, I'm happy. But yes, I agree with you. I think that this is going to be a contender for probably one of my all-time favorite, holiday slasher films. It's just shaping up to be that. I mean, it already has Art the Clown in the corner. It already has Sienna. It's really going to be tough for it to miss on that front. And then kind of the last two pieces I want to talk about here that I pulled from the article, which, I mean, obviously I still recommend everybody go read the article on Deadline, and there's still some nuggets in there
A
that
lot
we're
of
not
great
even going to
tidbits.
touch on that. Yeah, just a lot of good conversation pieces. It's a much longer interview than I anticipated. Yeah, so one of those things was that when talking to Lauren LaVera, she was expressing her excitement to really dive into the emotional beats of how Sienna is holding up after the events of the second film. Um, I noticed some that can probably give you guys some flashbacks to David Gordon Green's whole shtick, as he likes to say, like, I like to, really hone in on people as they're dealing with their trauma, and everybody's kind of done with trauma horror, even though in all reality, most horror is trauma horror. So it's one of those things where I think that they're going to handle this very confidently. I think that they understand the audience, they understand what we're here for, but I think that it just makes sense as the progression of the character to have Sienna kind of reflecting on this, and we don't know exactly how far after the second one this is taking place yet. This could just be 2 months after the events of October, and that's where we could be, but it could be a year, it could be more. I mean, we just don't know yet. So to have her still freshly digesting all those events and chopping the head of a demon clown serial killer off, that shit will stick with you, and I'm excited to see how they handle it.
Yeah, and obviously we don't know the story beats yet, but if this does take place, almost a full year after that following Christmas Eve, I think that would be a really interesting kind of beat, just because to let those events stew a little bit with Sienna and see where she's at as we pick up, especially if we pick up that night, and then we don't see Art the Clown for a very long time, and then all these events start happening around Christmas Eve. I think that would be really interesting, especially with that mental headspace. With everyone, especially dealing with those events, could really add an interesting element, because, as we went into Terrifier 2, these characters were just being introduced to us, in their
Mm-hmm.
normal lives. So I'm really excited to see what Terrifier 3 is going to look like opening up, and where our characters are going to be, because, all this connective tissue that we haven't had before, where, going in for Terrifier 2 was pretty much a clean slate. Yes, we did have some returning characters, but in very limited space, So as we get into Terrifier 3, I'm really excited to see what kind of connective tissues they're going to bring over, and how deep into this character development we're really going to get.
Yeah, I agree. That's definitely what I'm looking forward to. I'm also curious to see where Jonathan's going to be,
Yes.
having really witnessed the chaos that happened with his mother and everything. I feel like it's not that the performance was bad or anything, but his character has kind of been washed over a lot because of just how impactful Sienna was and
Hmm.
how much she takes center stage there. But I don't want to discount him at all. I think
And he
that he's
played
going to
such
play a
a
bigger role.
Yeah, and I mean, he played a pretty big role in
He
Terrifier
did,
2. It
yeah.
just gets kind of overshadowed, I think. But like going back and rewatching that, especially in the theater, there were things that I had forgotten, and then to realize how big of a part Jonathan was and how much of a target he was for Art.
Hmm.
I'm excited to see what the fallout's going to be for him because he went through some really traumatic stuff as well.
Not to extend this any further than it has to be, but it just popped in my head here. But like, I'd love to have a segment where Jonathan's almost doing like a Home Alone scenario with Art there, where it's like he knows he's in the house, so he's setting up booby traps and
That would be
stuff.
a
I
great
mean,
callback.
it
I
would
would.
be
Oh my
amazing.
gosh, what a great reference that would be.
All right. But the last bit that I wanted to touch on here is not only the fact that Damien Leone does confirm that, there's definitely more stories in the Terrifier realm that he wants to tell. He does think that he does confirm that the film will leave the door open and or that it can be opened for more stories. So not necessarily, again, that we're going to get a full wrap up, which I don't think anybody expected that, considering, the first film's a proof of concept. The second one really begins this story. It is very much kind of like a pseudo first film for these new characters and everything. So it's one of those things where we all kind of expected it to continue. But what he does say is that he has been working closely, and we reported on this at the beginning of the year, that he's been working closely with Ghost House Pictures, Sam Raimi as a producer, on a new project that is currently still in active development. So there may be a bit of a break between Terrifier 3 and 4, which I think is, depending on how they end this one, I think that's perfectly serviceable to take 2 or 3 years off, work on another project, and then come back. Because I think, we don't want to get too oversaturated. And, to realize just how much time was in between Terrifier 1 and 2, we definitely want them to take their time, really set things up, really let the cast grow, let them spread their wings a little bit. But I think that from what we've seen here, they've developed a very nice kinship and family behind the scenes. So I think there's you know no question in my mind that when Terrifier 4 does eventually come around, I think that everybody will be ready to come back and commit.
Yeah, and I'm definitely excited to see where it's going to lead. Yeah, I think after Terrifier 3 to take a couple year breather, I think there's no harm in that. We don't want to kind of, as we always call back to, like Saw coming out every year, where
Which
you
they're doing
don't.
again.
Yes,
So
I know. Which I don't think you want to kind of get into that rhythm where Terrifier, even taking a year off, I think the fans are even more hungry than they were prior to Terrifier 2 coming out, just because it Terrifier 2 was such quality and such deep storytelling, and so it's something so different from what we got from the original Terrifier. I
really
think,
set us off. Like, I mean, we
yes,
we were not fans of that first film.
no,
So
and now it's that we couldn't be more on board with the Terrifier franchise. So I think taking that breather off, kind of letting your creative juices flow a little longer in terms of getting to that Terrifier 4, I think is always a good thing. Especially, hey, we're going to be alternating between the Terrifier universe and Thanksgiving. I mean, come on, that you can't beat it. So if they're going to take a couple years off before they revisit Terrifier 4, I think that is something I think as a creative you need to do and kind of
mhm.
just dive into a different space and tell a different story. And then I think you get even better ideas when you revisit your already established franchise. So, and I know he mentions that, there's always a way to bring everyone back. So, in terms of, finality, in terms of getting done with Terrifier 3. So I think, as we come to the conclusion of Terrifier 3, we may, not see Sienna back for Terrifier 4. Who knows? But I think there's a lot of gas left in the tank for after Terrifier 3. So I'm really excited to see what they're going to do. But yes, I do think a little rest will do creatively, will do Damien Leone well. And then I think the fan base will only grow with that rest period.
Absolutely. And I am really excited about all this. I think that all this news was great. This was definitely a wonderful, nice little early Christmas present for us. As far as just, wanting to get more news about Terrifier 3, they kicked off the end or the beginning of November, really, with all of this Terrifier 3 stuff. And now to have us right here just about a week, 2 weeks before Christmas, having all this is all good stuff. They start production in February, so I imagine by March, April, they'll be wrapping up, and then I assume by early summer, probably about June, we'll get our first official real trailer, and then just all the news after that, everything, more updates, more images. It's going to be a blast, man, and we really don't have that long to wait. The turnaround on this is going to be crazy, and again, that is just another benefit you get when it comes to not only having such a high concept and a beloved property, but it's still being relatively low budget in the grand scheme of films here. So it's like they're ready to go, they're ready to rock, and they are able to turn this thing around and get it out to us.
Yeah, and the beginning of the year is going to be here in no time, and then it's going to be a waiting game. It's going to be a very short run for that October, and we'll be sitting in the theater before we know it, watching art slash some holiday cheer into the awaiting patrons of Miles County. So I'm definitely excited. I can't wait to be able to see that actual trailer, and of course any news that's going to come Terrifier 3 wise, especially any other horror news, we'll definitely keep you updated, as we are just waiting to hear other news. So keep it right here.
Yep, you heard it from Luke there. We'll keep you guys posted. But other than that, we do have a lot of great content on the channel. As of right now, we were still talking all kinds of Godzilla stuff. Godzilla -1 is still like about 2 weeks old, so it's one of those things where we're still riding that high. And we're moving into the Christmas season with December to Dismember starting in just a couple of days. So bear with us. We got a lot of fun content, lots of classic movie reviews as a nice little treat for you guys. And yes, we do have one big video coming just a few days before Christmas. So lots of fun, lots of cool stuff. And yeah, that's going to wrap us up here. So until next time, I am Dylan Newell.
And I'm Luke Janesco.
And remember, stay scared.